So we'll see how Creighton kind of handles all of that moving forward. Again, we'll find out really quick on Saturday, and we'll talk about that game here in a little bit. But before we do that, Nebraska exists too.
It does.
And in the Huskers opened.
Glad they do, because I wouldn't have a job otherwise.
Yeah, we could tag team Creighton.
Yeah,
it'd work. And Nebraska opened Big Ten play last weekend. Not the opener that the Huskers
it was not
wanted, and probably not the opener that the Huskers expected.
Yeah.
But I'll let you talk a little bit more about Nebraska's blowout loss at Michigan State.
Yeah, I think it was just a lot of what maybe the coaching staff feared.
Right.
Nebraska did not have a good week of practice leading up to it. Fred Hoiberg has said that a couple times. He didn't like their energy, their focus. And it all kind of came to a head against a very talented Michigan State team. And I think what was concerning is that this is the way we saw Nebraska lose a lot of games last year, was by just getting manhandled under the basket, not being able to rebound. And, that was part of what they sought to address, bringing in Braxton Mia, bringing in Berke Buchtenjel, who was on a minutes restriction on Saturday, and just getting really outplayed in all facets of the game. Absolutely just throttled on the glass. I think Michigan State was plus 29 on rebounds, which is crazy. They got 12 offensive rebounds.
I've watched Creighton get out rebounded quite a few times since joining the beat, because it's just not the style. They play very fast pace. Hey, if we don't get the rebound, and especially a few times this year. Never have I seen Creighton get out rebounded, or really many teams in a power conference B versus power conference game get out rebounded by 29.
Yeah, it was that kind of day for Nebraska. They couldn't.
Yeah.
They didn't shoot well. They didn't rebound well. They didn't defend well. And again, Michigan State, I think, is really good. So that's why, it's easy to overreact to one game. I think there's a good chance this Michigan State team is really good.
I think so too. I watched that game.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy.
And you saw in the first half, Michigan State out-rebounded Nebraska as they did, and that's how they took a 10-point lead into halftime. The rebounds, the interior play, the toughness, and then Michigan State comes out and starts raining threes in the second half, and it was beyond over at that point.
It's very. I'm gonna bring up old wounds for Big Red. Very reminiscent of the Texas A&M game last year, where it's like you plan all week for the physicality and the slashing and the driving and the rim pressure, and you get to the game and that team, the alleged physical team, starts hitting threes, and you're like, okay, well, let's go home.
I remember. Rewatching, a condensed version of that game. I had forgotten how ridiculous A&M's shot making was, not to get off track. But it was going into that game. Yeah. Nebraska needed to hit shots, and because A&M was the bigger, stronger team, and then Wade Taylor is just hitting ridiculous step back threes 2 minutes into the game. You're just like, that wasn't supposed to happen,
right? And I think a little bit of that happened, especially in the second half at Michigan State.
Yeah, but Michigan State is still a kind of a team in the process of figuring it out, and that might be a good team. They've got shooters who, kind of like Nebraska over the first 4 or 5 games of the season, good shooters who weren't really hitting shots.
Right.
Like Jaden Akins was way below his career averages from three. So again, I think Michigan State is really good. I think this might be Tom Izzo's best team since 2019 when they made the Final Four.
Yeah.
Which is why I would caution Nebraska fans not to overreact to one game. Doesn't matter. People overreact to everything. And I don't mean Nebraska fans specifically. I mean all sports fans. But, I think that was kind of a wake-up call for Nebraska, not just getting beaten the way they did, but the 3 days or however many it was days of practice that weren't very good before that, of just like, this is the Big Ten, and if you don't come to play, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Yeah, and I think it was so tough because this was a team that knew going into its non-con schedule, one, it was weak. Yeah. The non-con schedule was weak. And they got, I don't want to say lucky, but it certainly helps that even though they lost that game, St. Mary's is good.
Yeah.
So it's like a quality loss.
Yeah.
And then they obviously beat Creighton, a week later, less than a week later, and it's like, we might have something here.
And I think what's interesting about those is Nebraska beat Creighton and almost beat St. Mary's by being the tougher, more physical team. That was the formula that worked for them, because they didn't really hit shots in either of those games. They won by being physical and getting rebounds, and it
disappeared.
It disappeared, yeah.
And I think, we've said on here since, I don't know, August, September, that Nebraska was going to hang its hat on that.
Yeah.
That you had a Sejan, and he brought in Gavin Griffiths to hit shots. But at the end of the day, Nebraska was not, never will be, I'd imagine, a team that's going to take 30-plus threes a game.
30 a game's a lot for anyone.
Right. I don't think Nebraska's going to shoot 20-plus threes, 25 threes a game.
They led the Big Ten in threes per game last season.
How many of those were Casey?
Probably a significant number.
So, no, just the point being, the recipe for these Huskers was always going to be that physicality. Yeah. And so if you are getting out-physicaled, you're probably in for a long night.
Yeah.
And if your opponent is out-physicaling you and hitting shots, you're in for a really long night. Yeah. So that's kind of what it felt like happened to Nebraska. But they'll get a chance to bounce back against another Big Ten team. Primetime game.
Yes. On network television.
On network television against Indiana on Friday night in Lincoln.
Yeah.
What are you expecting from that?
I'm expecting another physical game. I'm expecting Nebraska to bring it a little bit more than they did against Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
And Indiana's interesting because Nebraska kind of dominated the Hoosiers last year. It's only team in the Big Ten they played 3 times, and they won all 3 by double digits.
Did they have Kala Ware last year?
They did, yeah. And Nebraska shot well in all 3 of its games against Indiana last year. And Indiana did not take threes. And Nebraska just was happy to trade 3 for 2 all night. And look, that's a possibility.
Sure.
Indiana's better. Nebraska has 3-point shooters, as we've seen. We saw how hot Connor Essegian can get. Bryce Williams can knock down threes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is going to be kind of a classic Big Ten, just,
a slobber knocker.
I hate to say a rock fight.
A rock fight. Mud fight.
A mud fight.
Yeah.
Did we use that last year?
Yeah, Greg McDermott said it after maybe the St. John's game at home.
Yeah.
The one where Rick Pitino said that he was going to jump in the snow and, mud fight.
Yeah.
So.
But I think something to that, and that's a lot of Big Ten games,
Right. Welcome to the Big Ten.
Yeah. Bryce Williams said something the other day that stuck out to me because I thought it was pretty accurate. He said, the boards will tell the story in the Big Ten. I don't know how it is across other leagues. I haven't played in those other leagues, but whoever wins the glass in the Big Ten is usually going to win the game. And if it's lopsided, then it's going to be a blowout. And that, I think Nebraska kind of, I forget, I used to know it off the top of my head, but, Nebraska's record last year when it won the rebounding battle versus when it lost, but it was pretty closely aligned to just their record overall.
Yeah. Yeah. Some teams can get away with it.
Yeah.
Some teams certainly can't.
Yeah.
And I don't think Nebraska's one of them. No. Just because of the nature of how they want to play.
Yeah.
They want to, they fully embrace the physicality, the brutality of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And so that's, again, if you're not the more physical team, when that's your game plan, Michigan State happens.
Yeah.
When you are the more physical team, Creighton happens.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good difference to show what Nebraska can do versus what teams could do to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Depending on how physical the Huskers want to be on any given night.
Yeah.
Fred Hoiberg had an availability on Wednesday. Did they mention anything specific about there that caught your ear, if you will? Other than I'm assuming that's when you talked to them about the boards.
Yeah. The boards and
but what stuck out
practices.
to you about Wednesday's availability?
What Fred said about that not being satisfied with the way they practice, that they didn't prepare well against Michigan State. That's a lot of what my story was about.
Right.
Last year, after they kind of sleepwalked through a loss at Maryland, every week Fred gets the report from the sports science people recommending how to manage the load. And last year against Wisconsin and before the Wisconsin game, and then this week, both times he said, forget the science. This team needs to get tougher. And it worked last year. Last year he did that, and they beat number 6 at the time, Wisconsin, and he's banking on that again. Again, when the Nebraska needs a kind of infusion of physicality and to be tougher than they were a few days earlier, that's what he's going for.
Yeah, I think it's funny that we just mentioned Rick. I just mentioned Rick Pitino because he did that at the end of last year. Yeah. Remember when he pretty explicitly called out the players? They're laterally slow. They're not good.
They're all terrible, and then they ripped off like 5 wins in a row.
They won like 5 or 6 straight. Yeah. Now, they were all winnable games, so I want to put that out there that like he didn't say that with Creighton, UConn, Marquette coming up. But regardless of who was on the schedule, it worked.
Yeah.
Because I'll be damned if they didn't play defense the rest of the year. Yeah. They almost beat UConn in the Big East tournament at the Garden. So maybe we'll see if the Huskers get a little bit of that same thing that they had last year through, I don't know, in this instance, not Fred Hoiberg calling them out, obviously.
Yeah, that's not really his style.
Right. But kind of, in a way, going off script.
Yeah.
Forget the sports science. I don't care what the number says.
Yeah.
This team needs to win games, and this team needs to be tougher.
Yeah.
So
I guess the other thing that stuck out to me, Berke Buchtengel, sounds like he'll be on a minutes restriction again against Indiana. He was on one against Michigan State, but he didn't hit it because once it got out of hand, they didn't put him back in. But he is just – you can't overstate how big he is to that toughness that Nebraska wants. He is a tough dude. I'm sure I've said it on this podcast before, but coming into the season, Fred was talking about, this guy, he can shoot, he can dribble, he can pass, he's 6'10", he's so skilled. We haven't really seen the shooting from Berke. We have seen the toughness. We have seen him willing to grab rebounds, block shots, dive for loose balls. He is a tough dude. He is a good rebounder, and he's got the kind of skill set Nebraska needs to win Big Ten games.
I think so. And they didn't have him against St. Mary's, right? He missed that game.
They had him against St. Mary's.
Did he miss a game?
He missed their last non-con game, North Florida, because he got injured against South Dakota.
Okay, I remember he missed a game. I couldn't remember which one, but no, I mean he, obviously got to see them when they came to Omaha. He is a massive piece of that.
Yeah,
that's part of why they went and got him.
Yeah,
they said, "Oh, we lost Brink Mast. We lost a little bit of that physicality."
Yeah,
Berke Buchtengel. Yeah. And though he's been that, they're going to need him to continue to be that because nobody in the league itself, but nobody in the Big Ten pulls punches.
No. And you don't just stumble into Big Ten wins either. Like
no, not in this Big Ten.
Certainly not.
Creighton's not going to stumble into any wins in the Big East.
No.
And Creighton certainly isn't going to stumble into a win Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
In the best rivalry in college basketball.
The little-known best rivalry in college basketball. Creighton gets number 7 Alabama in Tuscaloosa on Saturday night on I've got a bone to pick with TV because there's no way in hell that this game should be on SEC Network.
Yeah.
How?
What's on Fox that night?
I don't even know. I don't even know. Me and Dylan looked it up. Shout out Dylan. We looked it up yesterday, maybe the day before, and we went through this whole shebang. And I was like, they could have made room. They could have made room.
Could have slid some things around.
Yeah, they absolutely could have. Or I know that college basketball doesn't want to compete with the NFL. Sunday was wide open.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, hard to get national TV slots on NFL Sunday. But in any case, this game should not be on SEC Network. That's what I do know. And it's going to be a doozy and a dandy and everything in between for the Jays.
What are you looking for from this game?
I am looking to see. Let's backtrack 7 days.
Let's do
less
it.
than 7 days, because I think here's where it all starts.
I can't believe that was less than 7 days ago.
The Pop Isaacs news.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that all happens, okay, and that all kind of starts to unfold on Friday. It did unfold on Friday, and then it really unraveled Saturday morning before Creighton played UNLV. That day, Creighton, needing a playmaker, again, slid to the lineup that we talked about earlier. Ashworth 1, Jemiah Neal 2, Mason Miller at the 3, McAndrew 4, and Kalkbrenner at the 5. And Jemiah Neal went to work as a playmaker. He finished with 19, 9, and 9.
That's
a sniff away from a triple-double. And I'm sure somewhere in there he passed and somebody missed a shot.
Yeah.
And, so very, very close to having a triple-double. And we saw that he was potentially the playmaker Creighton needs him to be moving forward. He did it against Notre Dame in Vegas, matched his career high against the Irish, and then he did it again against UNLV. And for a second, you're like, okay, Jemiah Neal, he's going to play make. Stephen Ashworth, he's going to off-ball play make and obviously command the offense. Maybe they'll be okay. The depth, questionable now, and this was before the Larry Johnson and Sterling Knox news, but maybe they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm looking, long meandering way to say. I'm looking to see if that keeps up Saturday night in Tuscaloosa, because God bless UNLV. It's an okay basketball team this year.
Yeah.
And it is certainly not by any stretch of the imagination close to Alabama. Greg McDermott said that we had availability Thursday afternoon, and Greg McDermott said that he thinks Alabama, talent-wise, is one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country. And I would say so. It's a drastically different-looking Alabama squad than last year, and they made it to the Final Four last year. Now, they've lost a few pieces have come and gone, but they added Cliff Amore this offseason.
Cliff versus Kolk in the post.
Isn't that going to be fun?
Yeah.
They also have Grant Nelson at the 4. So Creighton's going to have to find a way to defend Grant Nelson and Cliff Amore. And you have
have 2 Kolks?
Right. And you have one of the best guards in the country in Mark Sears. Plus, shout out Omaha native Latrell Wrightsell. He's out for the season now, but he was on that roster. And Greg McDermott thinks that Creighton is going to see Chris Youngblood, who has not played for the Tide yet this season. In any case, what I'm looking for, Wilson, is to see if Creighton can continue to operate on offense, shorthanded as could be, especially when it comes to your primary playmakers, against a really, really, really good team. Other than that, I've seen a lot of people say that this is like a matchup nightmare for Creighton, personnel-wise probably, but I've seen a lot of people not talk about the personnel as much and mention Alabama's scheme. I don't know if Creighton struggles with Alabama's scheme, because I think
it feels like they run pretty similar schemes.
Exactly.
Like get up and down the floor.
Exactly.
Shoot threes, get to the rim.
And we saw in last year's meeting, which Creighton won in Omaha, 85-82, that they do play similar styles. And if Creighton's going to hit shots, well, they've got a chance. And if Alabama makes shots, well, they got a chance. And, I think we could see 53s in this game.
Yeah.
Easily.
That wouldn't be surprising.
No, I think we could see 53s. And so I don't know if schematically it's as much of a matchup problem as some people think, as I've seen some people think. So that's interesting. We'll see, obviously, on Saturday. But I'm not worried about how Creighton matches up schematically. I'm really not. How is Stephen Ashworth on half an ankle going to defend Mark Sears?
Yeah.
It'll probably be Jemiah if I had to take a good guess. But then if Jemiah is chasing around Mark Sears all night, does he still have the energy to produce offensively? And if that doesn't happen, well, then who does? And if, there's so many, there's a ripple effect starting kind of right there with the personnel.
Yeah.
So I think Jemiah is going to play a huge part of this team, but I really just want to see if they can continue to take steps forward in the infancy of life without Pop Isaacs, whose surgery was on Friday. Everything went well, from what I was told. So that's good. Hope everything works out there with his recovery. But yeah, man, it'll be it has been an interesting week. It will continue to be an interesting week. Again, we're recording this late Thursday afternoon, and Nebraska plays Indiana on national television on Friday night.
25 hours from now. Yeah.
And then 24 hours after that, Creighton plays number 7 Bama on the road. Its first true road game of the season is at number 7 Alabama.
That's a power play.
It is a power play. And so for all of those reasons and more, Saturday is going to be a hell of a test for Creighton. Yeah. It really is. I think we'll find out a lot about these Jays. Somebody asked me earlier today, if Creighton wins Saturday, do I think that says more about the Jays or more about Alabama? I think it says more about the Jays.
I would agree.
I really do.
I think Alabama is who they are. Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah.
They're going to battle it out with SEC is loaded, man.
Yeah.
They're going to battle it out at the top of the SEC with Kentucky and Auburn and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change no matter what happens Saturday. But boy, could you imagine these battered and bruised Blue Jays going into Tuscaloosa and leaving with a win?
That would be
changes your entire outlook on the season.
That would be a Greg McDermott masterclass if they did that.
Yeah, and they're going to need it to be because, again, it's a tough matchup.
Yeah.
There's no denying that. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough for sure. I think that's all I have. You got anything else?
I don't think so. I think we hit on pretty much everything that's happened in the last week.
I got one last one for you.
Yeah, hit me.
Your favorite Christmas movie.
Favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah. Last week we did favorite Christmas song.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with favorite Christmas movie.
I like that. I'm going to go with a classic here.
Okay.
I'm going to say Home Alone.
Fire.
Yeah.
Mine is A Miser Brothers Christmas. Heat Miser, Snow Miser.
I am vaguely familiar.
Okay. Let's see.
I don't know that I've ever heard that as someone. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever heard that as someone's favorite before.
Yeah. Me and my sister used to sit and watch that.
Yeah.
When we were little. So Miser Brothers Christmas is probably it's up there for sure.
I like it. You went out on a limb on that one. I respect it.
Yeah, I sure did. Home Alone's really good too, obviously.
It's classic.
Yeah. Get a limo, order pizza to yourself, go to a toy store.
Yeah.
Fight off a couple of robbers.
Yeah.
What's better?
Yeah.
Guys being dudes.
Yeah.
Just Home Alone.
I defend my apartment that way on a nightly basis.
I hope not. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Half Court Press. Thanks for joining us. If you want to find all of Wilson's stuff, all of my stuff, everyone else's stuff, please go over to and then subscribe to omaha.com. That's going to wrap things up for this week's episode. We'll talk to you all next week.